The wind howled through the darkened streets as Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the moonlit sky through the window. His heart felt heavy, burdened by questions he could no longer suppress. Who am I? Why do I feel like I'm being pulled in opposite directions? All his life, he had struggled with an unseen force, a battle raging inside him, one that no one else seemed to understand. Every decision he made felt like it carried more weight than it should, as if unseen eyes were watching, waiting. He wasn't just another person trying to make it through life. No, something about him was different, and deep inside he knew it. Yet that night something shifted. The air around him thickened as a strange sensation crept over his skin, sending chills down his spine. He wasn't alone. He turned sharply, scanning his dimly lit room. The shadows in the corners seemed to move. His breath hitched. Then a whisper, almost imperceptible, echoed through the silence. "There is a serious fight about you." His body tensed. What? He wasn't sure if he had imagined it, but deep inside he felt it. An invisible war that had been waged long before he was born. The ancient battle. Daniel didn't know that in realms beyond human sight, forces were clashing over his destiny. Some called him a mere human, a lost soul wandering through life. But others whispered something different. He is chosen. He carries a purpose greater than he knows. He must not be allowed to see the truth. The war was fierce. On one side, the forces of darkness sought to chain him to doubt, fear, and despair. On the other, warriors of light fought relentlessly, tried to awaken him to his true identity. And at the center of it all was him, Daniel, a man caught between forces he had yet to comprehend. The world's lies. All his life, he had been told he was ordinary. Teachers dismissed his dreams as foolish. Society taught him that he was just another number, a face in the crowd. The world tried to convince him that he had no significance, no divine purpose. But the whispers continued. You are more than what you think. The world has lied to you. Daniel's hands trembled as he tried to steady his breath. Was he going crazy? Or was something truly happening beyond what his eyes could see? Then the dreams began. Vivid, powerful dreams where he saw himself standing in a battlefield, surrounded by figures cloaked in darkness. But just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a radiant light would break through the sky, pushing back the shadows. And each time, a voice echoed through his soul. Wake up, Daniel. The fight is real. The moment of awakening. One night, unable to bear the weight of the unknown any longer, he walked into an old church, abandoned yet strangely peaceful. The air inside felt different, thick with a presence he couldn't explain. As he stood before the altar, a single candle flickered in the darkness. And then it happened. A voice, strong and undeniable, spoke directly into his soul. Daniel, you were never meant to be ordinary. The world tries to silence those who are chosen, but you must awaken. There's a serious fight about you because you are destined for something greater. The darkness wants to keep you blind, but you were created for the light. Tears streamed down his face. A weight he had carried for years lifted. For the first time, he saw the truth. He was not just another person wandering through life. He was part of a divine plan, and the fight over him was proof of his worth. The days after Daniel's awakening were unlike anything he had ever experienced. The moment he walked out of the abandoned church, something inside him had changed. The world didn't look the same anymore. Every conversation, every decision, every struggle, it all felt heavier, as if invisible forces were watching, waiting for his next move. He could feel it now, the battle. It wasn't just a metaphor or some distant spiritual idea. It was real. The whispers that once seemed distant now grew louder. Some tried to lift him up, reminding him of his worth. You are chosen. You were never forgotten. Walk in the light. But then there were the others, the ones that clawed at his thoughts, trying to drag him back into doubt and despair. You're nothing. You imagine it all. Why would God choose you? And with each passing day, the fight only grew fiercer. The world turns against him. At first, Daniel tried to go back to life as usual. He returned to work, saw his friends, and tried to push everything to the back of his mind. But the world around him didn't seem to want to let him forget. It started small, missed opportunities, people turning cold for no reason, a sudden sense of isolation. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly now felt strained. It was as if an invisible wall had been placed between him and the life he once knew. And then came the attacks. Late one night, as he walked home, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Give up. You will never win." His hands trembled. He looked around, but the street was empty. A chill ran down his spine. For the first time, he realized that this war wasn't just happening in his mind. It was manifesting in the world around him. But why? What was it about him that made the darkness fight so hard to pull him back? The vision. That night, Daniel fell into a deep, restless sleep. And in that sleep, he saw a vision. He stood on a massive battlefield, but he wasn't alone. Hundreds, maybe thousands, stood beside him, all facing a towering wave of darkness. It pulsed with a terrifying energy, tendrils of shadow reaching out, trying to consume everything in its path. And then, amidst the chaos, a voice rang out. Strong, clear, undeniable. "Daniel, do you see now? This is why the fight over you is so intense. You are not just one man. You are a leader, a warrior in a battle far greater than yourself. And if you rise, others will rise with you." His heart pounded. The realization struck him like lightning. This fight, it wasn't just about him. The darkness wasn't afraid of him as a person. It was afraid of what he would become, of the people he would lead, of the truth he would spread. And that meant one thing. He could never go back. The turning point. Daniel woke up gasping for air. The room was dark, the air thick with an unshakable presence. But this time, he wasn't afraid. He finally understood. All his life, he had been searching for meaning, for purpose. And now he knew the truth. The fight was never about breaking him. It was about stopping him from becoming who he was meant to be. But he wouldn't let them win. For the first time in his life, he made a choice. He would step into the light. He would fight back. He would become who he was destined to be. And nothing could stop him now. The morning light streamed through Daniel's window, but today, it felt different. He wasn't just waking up to another day. He was stepping into a new reality. The war over his soul was real, but now, he was no longer just a passive participant. He had chosen his side. He stood in front of the mirror, staring into his own eyes. The fear that once gripped him had loosened. The doubts that once whispered lies had grown quieter. He knew they weren't gone completely. The darkness would never stop fighting. But now, he had something stronger than fear. He had purpose. The first test. The world hadn't changed overnight. If anything, the attacks only grew stronger. But now, Daniel saw them for what they were: distractions, attempts to break him before he could rise. That day, his boss called him into the office with a frown. "Daniel, we need to talk. There have been some complaints." "Complaints? About what?" "People say you've been acting strange, distant, not like yourself." He knew what they meant. He wasn't playing along with the world's distractions anymore. He wasn't giving in to negativity, gossip, or fear. And people noticed. "I'm still doing my job," Daniel said firmly. His boss sighed. "Just be careful. People don't like change." And there it was, the world's way of keeping people asleep, making them fear standing out, convincing them to stay in the shadows. But Daniel wouldn't go back. The gathering storm. That night, as he sat in his apartment, the weight of his decision settled over him. He had stepped into the fight, but now what? How did he move forward? Then the knock came, 3 slow raps against the door. His heart pounded. No one ever visited him this late. He hesitated, then slowly turned the handle. Standing there was an old man, eyes deep with wisdom, his presence almost glowing. "You finally see it, don't you?" the man said. Daniel swallowed. "See what?" "The truth. The battle. Your role in it." "Who are you?" The old man smiled. "Someone who was once in your shoes. Someone who was once fought over. Just like you. And now I fight for others." Daniel's breath caught. "So, I'm not alone." The man chuckled. "Not even close. There are more of us than you could ever imagine. But the world wants you to believe you're alone so that you never step into your calling. Hope sparked in Daniel's chest. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't just imagining things. There were others who had been through this, who had fought and won. What do I do now? Daniel asked. The old man's eyes burned with intensity. You fight, not with fear, but with faith. Not with anger, but with truth. And most importantly, you help others see what you have seen, because there's a serious fight about them, too. The final stand. The following weeks changed everything. Daniel began to speak boldly. He started lifting others up, pushing back against the lies the world had fed them. He shared his story, and to his surprise, people listened. Some laughed, but others felt what he had felt. I've always felt like something was pulling me back, one friend admitted, like there was something more, but I couldn't see it. There is, Daniel said, and you were never meant to fight alone. One by one, others began waking up. They started resisting the pull of negativity, of fear, of doubt. The more Daniel stood firm, the more he saw the truth. The darkness didn't just want to stop him. It wanted to stop all of them. But now they were fighting back. The whispers of doubt still came. The attacks never stopped. But Daniel knew something now that he could never forget. The reason there was a serious fight about him was because he was meant to win. And so, are you?